Hey y'all, I hope everybody's doing well. Welcome back to the channel. It's been a long time since I posted. I'm sorry about that. I haven't really had the time to sit behind my computer and do video edits. I owe you guys some footage from some recent events. I'll try to get that out to you guys soon, as I promise. In the interim, I wanted to take a moment and I wanted to do a little bit, talk a little bit about bait rigging. I'll try to keep this video relatively quick. The rigging I want to tell you about right now, and actually let me put this back down, is the separation between using an EWG wide gap and an offset. Okay, both of these are Trokar hooks. I only use Trokar hooks nowadays. I just have a lot of faith and respect in it. There's a reason why I stick with that brand. I feel like my hookups are good. I feel like the hook points are great. It's what I use for my traditional worm fishing, my finesse worm fishing. Okay, now the separation between the EWG and the offset comes down to this. If you look at these two baits, really look at these two hooks and the rigging of this bait on this EWG, you see this really straight line. Okay, when you take that and compare that with an offset, okay, I can still get that straight line mentality, but you see where the hook point is at and the directionality of the hook point. Now what that's doing is basically exposing that hook to better hookup ratios. When I set the hook on the fish on an EWG, I have to rely on the bait to collapse a little bit, okay? And with their hook being in a straight line, when the point is in line with the shank, that's much more difficult to do when the point is out of line with the shank. So when a fish collapses on an offset, it automatically squishes that bait down, and when I set the hook, higher chance of hookup ratio. If you don't believe me, try it for yourself. I promise you won't regret it. The other thing I get asked a lot about is pegging, pegging the weights. I do not traditionally peg my weights, but you're like, Josh, you got a bobber stop on there. The only time that I use an EWG hook anymore, okay, and the only time I actually peg my weight to my bait is when I'm fishing in the densest of cover. And what I mean by the densest of cover is the heaviest of grasses. And the rationale behind that just comes down to this. With the EWG hook and with a pegged weight, you're relying on a little more luck to get that hook point to go through that fish's mouth. It'll be weedless as all weedless can be. But when a fish comes up and grabs a pegged weight and that weight is in his mouth up against that bait, and you go and rip that hook and set the hook on that fish, your weight tends to blow that fish's mouth open. Okay? And what happens is it lessens the velocity of your hook point going into the fish's mouth, which causes you to miss hookups and causes fish to come off. Okay? So people say, well, then why do you keep a peg on your line? And the rationale is really just for this right here. Okay? If I had a 3-foot or 4-foot line here and I had a peg way up my line, this bait could free roam around. Okay? A fish could pick it up, could swallow it, put it into a more precarious position, maybe get it down its gullet or whatnot, get it closer to its stomach, and cause me to harm that fish when I hook that fish. It also, and a lot of that comes down to the feel perspective, because that fish can come up and eat that worm and not really go anywhere with it. Okay, and in turn, that weight's not moving, and that weight is part of the feel mechanism, because you don't always feel a fish taking your worm. Okay, some of it comes down to the weight itself moving on the line. And so in this instance, what I've done is by putting a peg within about 1 foot of my line, this is all the farther my bait gets away from my sinker. But when a fish comes up and takes that bait, I feel it jerk or move that sinker automatically. And I set the hook on that fish. I usually have a good hook set in the roof of that fish's mouth, and I bring that fish to the boat successfully. So I hope these tips and tricks are helpful to you. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments below. Take it easy, everybody. Tight lines and keep it real.